You're in the zone. The superhero zone. Cue intro. Hello, and welcome to Superheroes 101. My name is Xavier, and I'll be your host. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Loki Episode 1. I'm super excited to hop into this video because this was a very fun-filled episode, so I have a lot to cover, so let's get straight into the video. But before we get into the video, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen it, make sure you go and watch it before you watch this video because it's going to be very spoiler heavy. I'm going to be breaking down the video, my thoughts, my ideas, my theories, and I don't think you want to be spoiled for this because this is a really good first starter up episode. And also make sure you go follow my Instagram at xavier.lee101 and my TikTok at xavier.lee6 for any updates or what I'm going to post or just some funny skits and all around fun stuff, so you should really go check it out. But now let's get right into the video. So Loki episode 1 starts out with Loki getting ready to escort Thor to Asgard so he can be locked up for his crimes for invading New York with the Chitauri. And basically, you know, we've seen the scene in Avengers Endgame. The Avengers go on a time heist. They break the proper flow of time, or so we think, leading to the Tesseract getting close to Loki so he can take it and get out, and he does, and he teleports to the Gobi Desert. And then he sees some people in the Gobi Desert, and he's like, I am your ruler, I will be king over you, blah, 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 blah. And the TVA, the Time Variant Authority, comes to put him in his place because he broke the proper flow of the sacred timeline. The sacred timeline is basically the MCU, its whole timeline and how it was supposed to go, and when that's broken, it makes tiny branched realities where a Nexus level event happens, but we'll talk more about that later. And also, the TVA basically makes sure that whatever variant gets loose from its proper flow of time and what the variant or the person is supposed to do in time, they make sure if they step out of line, they put them back in their place, they reset them, or if they don't comply, they delete them. So the TVA and Loki kind of have a little squabble. Loki tries to fight them, but then one of the main leader of the TVA hits him over the face with a baton, and it causes him to go 16th of a second, and he's feeling all of his pain in real time, and it is very painful. She slaps a collar on him that stops his powers from working, and then they take him to TVA headquarters. Once the TVA successfully capture Loki, the general of the TVA takes him to the front desk and tells the guy at the front desk, Casey, to take the Tesseract. He's like, what is this? Sounds dumb. And Loki's like, the Tesseract, don't disrespect it. And then she takes him to a room where his clothes get lasered off, the floor drops, and then he gets transformed into the TVA variant jumpsuits. Then he's asked to sign a waiver of every word he's ever said, and every word he says to the guy at the desk asking questions about why he has to do this, he has to keep printing out more paper because he keeps adding more words to his list. So he signs it, then the floor drops again, and then he goes to a temporal aura scanner. So Loki's now in the temporal aura scanner. That scanner, I believe, scans to see if you're good or bad. So the guy who is in charge of it asked Loki if he is an organic being, meaning if he was born, and made sure that he wasn't a robot, because if he was a robot, he would have been melted from the inside out. And then Loki said when the guy told him that, he's like, what if I'm a robot and don't know it? So he slowly walks out of the scanner, and it flashes and it shows his aura. His aura is kind of red and it has green on the outside of it, but I think that represents how evilly he is and his good side. So after he gets aura scanned, he walks into the other room and he goes to a place where he has to get in line and he has to have a ticket. He complains about having a ticket, but then he snatches the ticket from the officer, and then another guy is there as well, and he's walking through. But as he's walking through, a video starts with the character Miss Minutes, voiced by Tara Strong, the most amazing voice actress, the woman who played Raven, Batgirl, and Harley Quinn in a lot of animated series. Is that the word? So basically it explains what a Nexus level event is and why they are there at the TVA. I'll try to explain this next part as best as I can. So basically a long time ago, the Marvel Cinematic Universe used to be a bunch of different multiverses versus just one single time stream, and each multiverse was in a war with each other. So the three timekeepers, who are sus to me by the way, came together, brought their powers together, and are keeping the time stream intact. But the TVA's job is to make sure no more variants escape from the multiverse, because that will make a branch in time and it can cause a multiverse in madness, essentially. So when you leave your path and go off on a way you weren't supposed to, according to the timekeepers, the TVA's job is to put you back in your place so you don't ruin things in the grand scheme of things. Like Loki, for example, he was not supposed to take the Tesseract in that specific moment, but I feel like they should have brought in the Avengers, because technically it's their fault that he got the Tesseract, because they stumbled and fumbled and failed at that particular moment in time, so they couldn't get the Tesseract properly. So I don't understand why they weren't called in, but yeah. So the timekeepers are always watching. They are picking out different possibilities for every individual person, which is wrong to me, because everyone is supposed to have a free will, and the fact that they're literally puppeteering everyone's lives is a mess. They get to pick what they're going to be like and who they're going to be, and we're going to see that with Mobius and Loki. Mobius is going to tell Loki what his purpose is later on, but for right now, the timekeepers seem a bit evil to me, especially when you watch this episode. You can see like a sinister poster. The poster says the timekeepers are always watching, and it shows like a man on it that looks very creepy and very scary, and really that just scares me for what could happen in the future of the MCU. And also, when you leave your set time stream and cause a nexus, it will create alternate versions of yourself and different versions running around, creating a ruckus, thus the old multiverse war. But as we know, Wanda Maximoff is a Nexus level being, so the timekeepers, if they really are who they say they are, they have to keep their eyes on beings like her, because Nexus level beings are rare and powerful. They can alter reality at will, and I'm really surprised how the TVA didn't intersect when Wanda was in Westview and all that stuff happened, because basically Wanda, when she became the Scarlet Witch, became the top of the magical food chain. Because personally, I think the timekeepers are going to lose their power, and she's going to be in charge of keeping the time stream in check versus them. But after that little infomercial commercial is played, Loki doesn't really believe it. He brushes it off, and then he sees the guy that was with him earlier arguing with a Minuteman about how no one told him to get a ticket, and the Minuteman looks like he deleted him from existence, because he kind of like disintegrated away when he hit him with his baton, and Loki quickly scrounged for his ticket and then held it up, showing that he had it. And then after this scene, we go to his trial scene. But during this trial scene, Agent Mobius is out there figuring out a case. So Agent Mobius is back in the date 1549 in a French church, trying to figure out why this eviler variant of Loki is killing the Minutemen. But while he's in there, a child walks in and basically in shock, but the child seemed evil by the way it looked. at him. So Mobius walked over and told the child that it was going to be okay. Then he takes out a little pad and makes an animation of a stick man, and then he asks the child who did this. So the child points to the stained glass window of the devil, and then the child gives Mobius a pack of blue gum that the devil, aka the Loki variant, gave to the child. And then the child smiled in kind of like a dark, sinister way, and the child had a blue mouth like the devil did on that stained glass window. Now, I kind of think the child was that variant of Loki in disguise, possibly, but I really don't know. Anyway, Mobius says the devil bearing gifts, and then another agent walks through a TVA time portal and tells him about this Loki that is about to go on trial. This Loki meaning our Loki, the one from the first Avengers. So meanwhile, while Mobius is doing his thing, Loki went on trial, and the judge tells him to plead for his crimes of making a Nexus level event happen, and what does he have to say about it? So she tells him to plead, and he says, yes, I'm guilty for this, I'm guilty for this, I'm guilty for this, I'm guilty for this, I'm guilty for most things, but for this, I'm not guilty. You should go get the Avengers, because they're the ones who went through a time heist and lost the Tesseract, and that's why I grabbed it, so I blame it on them. And personally, I agree with him, because if the Avengers weren't there, he wouldn't have escaped his proper stream of time. But in the middle of the trial, Mobius walks in and sits in the back, and the judge deems Loki as guilty, and before he gets hauled off to jail, Mobius takes him and said that we can work with him to try to stop this new Loki variant, but he doesn't say that to Loki himself. He says that to the judge, because he gets close and, whispers to her about how this Loki can be useful in defeating any other Loki variants, or the Loki variant that is on the loose currently. So Loki and Morbius go on a little walk to his office. They're talking, and then Mobius finds Loki interesting. He tells Loki that he finds him interesting, and then they go into his office, and basically what happens in this scene is that Mobius is really trying to reason with Loki and trying to get a better understanding and read him better, but Loki is really just playing mind games with him, not answering his questions and ignoring him. And at one point he tries to leave, and then Mobius re-zaps him to his chair, and then he throws his chair, which will come into play in a second, and then because he gets mad that Mobius is asking him all of these questions like, do you like to hurt people? Why do you do it? And why do you do this? Why do you do that? Then Loki tries to stand up to talk, then Mobius zaps him back down, and then he lands on the floor, and then Mobius is like, your whole purpose in life, Loki, is to be bad, to lift other people's up and bring them together like the Avengers. Like, his evil wrongdoings and him losing brought the Avengers together, one of the strongest force on planet Earth, and he ended up being locked up, and Mobius kept saying over and over again that this is his purpose, for him to be evil and lose and bring more people to be the best versions of themselves. Now that must have been disheartening for him to hear, because his whole purpose is to fail and be evil while other people rise up around him and to be the best version of themselves. So that kind of crushes him. Then Mobius lifts him up, and earlier on in this scene, I think it was before this, he showed him a picture of the Avengers coming together, and then he showed when his mother got killed, he showed when Coulson got killed, and he shows that all he brings is chaos and confusion to the table. Then Mobius helps him up off of the floor after he has kind of like a mental breakdown, and then the TVA general comes in. She drags Mobius out, telling him about how he doesn't trust Loki and how they should really just reset him and get him back to his proper timeline. Then they both walk back in, and it turns out when Mobius was helping Loki up off of the ground, that Loki snatched his little remote control that controlled his collar that zapped him from place to place. He stole it and he dipped right on out of there. So as we know, Loki dipped. He went to go find Casey at his desk to go get the Tesseract back. So he forces Casey to give him the Tesseract back, or he's gonna gut him like a fish. And then Casey's like, "What's a fish?" And then Loki's like, "What do you mean, what's a fish? You don't know what a fish is?" He's like, no. And I would like to know what I'm being threatened by before I comply. And then Loki goes, "Death! You're being threatened with death." And then Casey goes, "Fine, alright. And then gives him the Tesseract. And then Loki takes the Tesseract, and before he looks away, he looks inside of the desk and sees all the Infinity Stones. And all the Infinity Stones are an Easter egg to basically tell you that the Infinity Stones are useless in this phase of the MCU. Like, the Infinity Stones are completely useless, to the point where Casey said him and some of his co-workers use them as paperweights. And also at this scene, notice how all the stones are there but the Mind Stone, which is very interesting to note. But we do see the Mind Stone in the end credits of this episode. So after this moment, Loki realizes that the TVA has more power than the Infinity Stones, and the Infinity Stones are worthless, and he basically has a moment of realization. And then here come the Minutemen, about to capture Loki, but he quickly blips out of there, and instead of disintegrating him, they disintegrated Cart, and Casey goes, "You guys almost disintegrated me!" And they're like, whatever, and then move on. And then Loki goes back to Agent Mobius's office to basically rewatch his mother's death and rewatch the rest of his life. He watches to Thor Ragnarok, where his brother finally accepts him, and then he sees his father also finally accepts him as one of his sons. And then he also sees himself die in an act of selflessness, and he sees his brother cry over him. And then at the end of that, it says "End of file," meaning that he was gone at that point, and that was the end. And that basically broke him and made him think about what he was doing and that he needed to stop. Meanwhile, the TVA general came in, and basically Loki got her collar off of him and put it on her, and then keeps looping her over and over and over again. And then he goes and sits down and recontemplates why he's doing what he's doing. Like, why is he so evil? Why does he keep doing this? And then Mobius walks in and goes, "Loki, are you okay?" And he goes, "I don't know." And then Mobius realizes that Loki does not like to kill people, because that's what Loki says. He says he doesn't want to kill people. And Mobius said, "I have a way for you to turn it around. There's an evil variant of you going around, and you might know their next move. So can you help us?" Loki agrees. And then we cut to a squad of the Minutemen in a field in 1858. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these past dates. I know they're going to be important, but I'm sorry if I'm butchering them. But it cuts to the Minutemen by themselves in like a field, and they see future technology, and they smell the scent of oil. We all know what that means, but they smell the scent of oil, and they're like, "Oh, this Loki must have just wanted to get rich and he left." And they scan the item, and then the leader of that squad says, "Oh, let's leave. This is not important." And then all of a sudden they see a hooded figure, which is suspected to be a variant of Loki, drops a lantern, and turns out the hooded figure laid out a whole gas trail around them and burns them alive. And then the leader of the squad tries to crawl back to the time portal, and then that hooded figure drags him, and that's the end of the episode. And that was the end of the first and premiering episode of Loki. I have never been so terrified for what's gonna happen in the MCU than after how I felt after this episode. This episode was so scary. It didn't have much action scenes in it, but the way they were talking was so scary, and it makes me excited for the next episode, but I'm also scared because I feel like this series is going to unlock something for Multiverse of Madness that they're going to need all of the magic users to help fix. Like, this whole Loki situation is a problem, especially with the other eviler, more sinister variant out there, which is very, very crazy and scary, and I can't wait to see it. Now, before I go and end the video, I had a theory about the Timekeeper. So as we know, Wanda Maximoff is the Scarlet Witch, a Nexus level being that can alter reality at will and make whatever timeline she wants, right? So supposedly, I think the Timekeepers are also Nexus level beings, and I think when they came together and saw the multiverse in war with each other, I think it was their fault, because 3 Nexus level beings are not supposed to be in one area at one time, because when a Nexus level being is in the same area as another Nexus level being, catastrophic things happen, like, for instance, a multiversal war with different variants of different people. So they combine the power and they're trying to keep the multiverse stable, but as we know from WandaVision, Wanda is going to go through the multiverse looking for her children, and that's going to cause a bunch of multiverse breakage. And also the multiverse is breaking already because there's so many variants getting out that it might start becoming more unmanageable, like this new eviler variant of Loki that is on the loose. And I feel like in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange is going to have to help Wanda to control the timeline, and Wanda's going to have to assign different Nexus level beings around the multiverse to keep it safe. But if Nexus level beings want to talk to each other, they have to project themselves into the other Nexus level beings universe, or it's going to cause, like I said before, catastrophic events like a multiversal war or possibly a multiversal explosion. But that's just what I think. Leave it in the comments below what you think about my theory. But now let's get to the end of the video. This episode of Loki was crazy, and I can't wait to see more. Make sure you leave some feedback about my video. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Leave it down below because I want to know. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications so that you get notified every time I upload a new video to this channel. Also follow my Instagram at xavier.lee101 and my TikTok at xavier.lee6 if you want any updates of when I'm going to post, go live, and other awesome stuff like that. And my posting schedule is Mondays and Fridays, sometimes Wednesday. And yeah, if you want more content from me, you're going to have to wait till my next video. Bye, guys.